I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation is the biggest unsolved mystery everyone is talking about: the tragic abduction of Nancy Guthrie. So many resources have been put into this case, hundreds of investigators, but still no arrests and no public suspects. Here's the story. It started with a normal family dinner. Nancy Guthrie left her daughter's home and returned to her own residence around 9:45 p.m. in the Catalina foothills. Sometime overnight, something happened. By Sunday, she had vanished. Deputies soon declared the home a crime scene. Evidence suggests she did not leave voluntarily. Blood confirmed to be hers was located outside. Surveillance video captured a masked individual on the property during the night. The FBI has joined the investigation. Ransom letters have circulated publicly but remain unverified. Nancy's daughter, Savannah, a familiar face to millions, now finds herself in a deeply personal nightmare. And the question remains, where is Nancy? Where is she? Let's bring in Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. Cody, I want to talk about, and obviously there's a lot of chatter, right? There's some evidence that's been made public, and people are taking really deep dives into it and very close looks, you know, some of the videos, frame by frame, etc. There's been a lot of chatter online about that doorbell camera in the moments when the so-called abductor approaches that camera. And they're talking about a second light source, right? We see that one light coming from his mouth. We've seen that. But there's discussion about a second light source that someone believes they may see in this video. Can you explain what they're talking about?
Yeah, so you know, when it comes to big mysteries, big cases like this, the general public, we know, gets fully invested, and sometimes the general public may notice something that law enforcement doesn't notice. That's why law enforcement always calls on the public for help, especially with something so, you know, as complex as this story here. Now, take a look at this TikTok posted by user It's Big Molly. She notices something a little different in that suspect video. Take a listen.
And I want you to pay really close attention. I don't think I've seen anybody point this out yet, but right there, that's not leaves. That is not a light source from him, because we're looking at what would be his left hand, so that's not his right arm. That is an additional light source.
All right, so let's take a look back at this original video. So we see that light source come into frame here, but of course when I first watched this video, I was wondering why that once it came into frame, it was so still and fixated. So then I looked closer, and when you look above this so-called light source, there's a flower or a clover-looking fixture that seems to fall at the same speed as this alleged light source. So let's slow it down here to give viewers a better look. We have the light source circled, but again, keep your eyes right above it. That fixture falls at the same speed. Maybe the suspect accidentally raked his hand along this fixture and it tilted down, didn't fall off the wall, but it seems as if this light source may actually be attached to this flower-looking fixture. And of course, we took a still shot, circled both to show that these things are independent of anything the suspect is holding, anything independent of anything attached to him whatsoever. So as far as why it's lighting up like that, this could be a reflection from the flashlight in his mouth, you know, just reflecting. It's so dark, it's reflecting off in a tight area, just reflecting off possibly a piece of metal, Vinny.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, when I saw the video, I was like, wow, okay, I did not notice that. You slow it down, it looks like there's two things in play off to the right. Cody's going to stick around this hour. That brings us to the first question in our investigation. What is it? What is this other light source, or so-called light source, that is spotted in that video as the suspect has the shrubbery in his left hand? Joining me, private investigator Jason Jensen and criminologist and investigative profiler Dr. Casey Jordan. Great to see you both. Jason, I'll begin with you. What are your thoughts about what we're seeing in that part of the video? Do you think it's another light source, or does it strike you as a reflection of something else?
Well, I'm glad you asked and answered it for me, actually, because I do believe it's just simply a reflection of light, probably of the door handle. I do recall seeing broader images of the doorway in other video clips during the daylight even, and I believe it's the handle of the door, and it's probably just the light reflecting off the handle of the doorknob.
Dr. Casey Jordan, what are your thoughts here? What are you seeing in this part of the video?
I think it probably is a reflection. I mean, it's really hard for us to judge, having never actually been to Nancy's house and studied the actual scene. Did she have any garden ornaments outside that it could have reflected off of? I mean, did she have a solar light, like one of those little mushroom-shaped solar lights? We are not sure. But I think that there's a lot of interest in this, Vinnie, because everyone is still a little bit stuck on, is this the work of one perpetrator, or could he have had a co-conspirator who's just out of the frame of that Nest doorbell camera? And I think people are thinking, is there somebody hanging out of sight who could also have a pen light, maybe in his mouth, maybe in his hand? Is it a flashlight? Or I think that there's a lot of people who wonder, where is the vehicle? Could the vehicle be parked down there? Could somebody else be sitting in the vehicle? Could the headlights be on, slightly off camera? So it's just one of those intriguing factors, something that a lot of people didn't notice from the outset, but I think mostly we are wondering about it because of the one person versus two person or more theory of how many people could have been involved in the abduction of Nancy Guthrie.
Yeah, I think you're right on there, because I think that's where the discussion now is going. We see the one guy, obviously, right? But, could he have done this alone? Is he working alone? Jason Jensen, what are your thoughts along that line of one person, two people? Could one person, could this man, this Walmart dressed suspect, be the one, or do you think there might be something more at play here?
Well, I do believe that if you remove the backpack of this individual, it looks like the other image that has been circulating around where they're claiming it's a second person. And the sheriff's office has already come out and indicated that not two separate nights. That was the rumor initially, but I do believe that the individual had the backpack out of sight, and then as he was proceeding to the house, he decided to put on it, and then and put the gun at his waist and head towards the camera.
Dr. Casey Jordan, what are your thoughts, having observed what was caught on camera and released publicly of this individual? Do you think he's working alone? Do you think there is a second or potential third person that would need to be involved to pull this thing off that has not been solved?
Vinnie, this has been a roller coaster ride for the police and for all of us, because we keep getting additional information that kind of changes our theories of what might have happened. At this point, I do believe that every communication demanding ransom and Bitcoin is a hoax. I am not at all convinced that she was taken from that house with the purpose of kidnapping, either for revenge or for profit at this juncture. It seemed like that in the first week, and at that time, I would have supported the two-person or more possibility of a co-conspirator, because it would be a little bit more difficult to kidnap somebody and get them out unnoticed, especially a 150-pound woman who doesn't walk very well and is in ill health. But I have to tell you that I am leaning more towards, right now, the idea that this is the work of a sole perpetrator. It's not impossible. When people are panicked and when the adrenaline is absolutely pumping, you would be amazed at what one person can do. Carry a 150-pound woman out would not be a problem if it means saving your life and taking her out of there because perhaps she has her DNA, your DNA under her fingernails, or perhaps she recognized you, and in your panic, you've got to get her out of there. So here's the number one reason I think this is more likely now to be the work of one person than two. It's because your chain is only as strong as its weakest link. And I think that if there were two people involved, we would have had one ratting out the other by now, especially since we now have $1 million reward on the table.
Yeah. Jason Jensen, looking at the video, and you know, he's fiddling with and seemingly attempting to remove that camera. Why? Is he removing that camera to gain entry to the home, or is he removing that camera to take Nancy out?
Well, it really looks like an unsophisticated effort to blind or obstruct the camera initially. So it doesn't seem to be a very organized perpetrator here. And he's certainly trying to, you know, obstruct being identified as what we're talking about later on, where it's going to be a topic of discussion. He's using his hand to block the camera, and then he tries to take these flowers and use it, and it didn't work, so he ends up taking the camera, I believe, afterwards.
Yeah, the camera's never been found. The camera, according to the sheriff, that was one of the early facts in this case, that the camera was removed and never recovered. What does that tell you, Dr. Casey Jordan?
Okay, well, I think unsophisticated is kind. He looks like a complete clown. And yet, so far he's successful. Whether that's beginner's luck or whether this is, you know, more sophisticated than we realize, he doesn't look organized. First of all, he comes up and he looks around. He ducks his head as if he doesn't know a camera's there. And then he sees the camera. Can I tell you that a real professional kidnapper or burglar would turn around and just leave? He's been caught on camera. Flowers aren't going to help. It's already logged. And he would just leave and pick another house. So that actually contributes to the whole idea that perhaps this was targeted and he was determined to get in there no matter what. We don't know whether this perpetrator understood the house was owned and occupied by Savannah Guthrie's mother. But the bottom line is he goes and he picks flowers, as was pointed out, and shoves it in the lens. That is amateur night. And yet we haven't caught him. So at this point, I have to think, I'm leaning more towards Vinnie as we go into 3.5 weeks, that this person was looking to burgle the home, probably thought it was unoccupied, got inside there, and was surprised by Nancy Guthrie. We don't know how she was taken out of there, willingly, unwillingly, alive, not alive, but this just doesn't seem like professional ninja-style kidnappers that we would see in a high-profile celebrity's mother kidnapping for ransom.
All right. Dr. Casey Jordan sticking around. Jason Jensen, great to see you. Thank you so much, sir. Coming up next, he's turning his head a couple times, right? What is the suspect looking at?
You know the drill.
Be there when it pops.
Get to it.
We'll get this guy.
Like we always do.
Thank you. This is gonna be fun.
Then let's get it on. I love this team.
Find Ion on your channel guide or favorite streaming service.
We just really don't have enough to say, this is our suspect, this is our guy, we know, or our gal. We just don't know that. And it's really kind of reckless to report that someone is a suspect when they could very well be a victim. It just, I bring to you, to the media, I plead with you to be careful of what it is we put out there, because we don't have anybody here listed as a suspect.
What's really interesting about that word suspect in this case is that no suspect has been named, but a suspect has been shown, right? The suspect is the man behind the mask on Nancy's porch. He's a suspect in this. The problem is nobody knows who nobody has said who the man behind the mask is, right? There are people that know, at least one knows, the man behind the mask knows, but there may be others in his life that know as well. Let's bring back in Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. Cody, looking at that video, There are times where you can see he's very focused on the camera and he goes towards the camera. But there are a couple other little moments in that video where it looks like he's looking at something else. And I was wondering if you could show that to us and sort of break it down a little bit.
Well, absolutely. Let's break it down. We see him strolling up all creepily, you know, when you watch the video in full time, but you see him looking off in a couple of different instances. So we'll start here. We see in this slowed down video of the suspect walking up to the door. He's knocking on the door there. We see him look off to the left a little bit for a couple of seconds before he turns his attention to the camera. What could he be looking at? Well, in this image from Fox News here, we see a clear picture of Nancy's front door. Now, next to that front door, we also see these pretty much floor-to-ceiling vertical windows. Maybe he's looking inside to see if any lights are on. Maybe he's looking to see if anyone's moving around in the home. It's unclear, but obviously not off the table given the direction that his vision was pointing, looking off to the left there. Now, also in this video, we see him go to pick those plants up, before he goes to cover the camera view. Here, he picks them up, he looks at the plants. We see him there look over his left shoulder again. Now, is he looking for another person? Is he looking at his car? Is he nervous about what he's allegedly about to go do? We aren't sure, but it's interesting to see, Vinny, where his vision's pointing in those different instances in this video, along with his obvious attention on the camera.
Yeah, and the only way you really see it, you got to go frame by frame. Thanks, Cody. That brings us to the next question in our investigation. What is the suspect looking at? What is he looking at? Two instances where his attention seems to be drawn to another place. Joining me, former prosecutor Bobby Tagavi is with us, and still joining us, criminologist Dr. Casey Jordan. All right, Bobby, what's your take on that? What are you seeing in that video in those two moments where his attention seems to be in a different place?
Yeah, you know, Vinny, when you look at it, it does for a second look like he's very quickly looking to the left. And I think everyone in the media wants to decide, oh, is there another person there? And listening to Dr. Jordan in the earlier segment, I completely agree with her. I do think this is a one-man show and a one-person job. You know, when there's two people as a prosecutor, you would always see that two people means double the chances of making a mistake, double the chance of getting caught, double the chance of someone coming clean and ratting you out. So I do think it's, you know, either he's looking at the door, at the window of the door to see if there's anyone inside, or he's hearing something in the neighborhood that caught his attention.
You know, they talk about the perfect crime. What is the perfect crime? Well, do it by yourself and don't tell anyone, right? That's your best chance. Dr. Casey Jordan, what are your thoughts about those two moments? One where he's kind of looking to his left as he approaches, and then when he's going down into the weeds and goes up and then briefly kind of turns and looks over that left shoulder.
Well, I'm going to add to the mix that he could be looking through the side light for sure. But the number one thing that occurs to me based on what we know and what I know by interviewing burglars is he's looking for any place that a spare key could have been hidden. He's looking for like a box that it could be under, a rock that it could be under. People, you know, or he could be looking up into the rafters to see if there's additional cameras in addition to the Nest camera that he can see. So looking for cameras and looking for any place that a spare key could be hidden, because it makes it so much easier when you have the key. Then he backs up and he goes for the weeds. I almost think that he could be looking for one of those fake rocks or looking under rocks, looking for anything. People leave their keys usually right within 5 feet of the front door, wherever they hide it. So maybe he's just looking for anything that could be secreting a key.
How about this one moment, though, Dr. Jordan, when he looks over the left shoulder, he's down, then he comes back up, and then right here glances towards his left. Is there any significance in that moment for you?
I'm going to agree with Bobby. I think he hears something. I think that that's the look of somebody who is hypervigilant, really concerned about, anybody else walking by. Maybe he hears a car in the distance. He just seems to be distracted by a sound. Listen, he could be speaking to somebody out of frame, but I'm just still going with the sole perpetrator theory at this point. I think if there were two people, we would see them both at some juncture.
Bobby, we're getting close to 4 weeks here. Are you surprised? Are you shocked? Or are you, not every crime gets solved quickly?
I am a little surprised. I think in kidnap cases, generally 4 weeks is pushing the envelope a little bit. I would have thought that there would have been more breakthrough, especially having so many homes that have Ring cameras, the traffic lights that have cameras. I know they did a 2-mile radius, and that there's recent news that there was a car 2.5 miles outside of the radius that they saw on camera during the same time. But I am surprised. 4 weeks is kind of pushing the envelope on a kidnap case.
Dr. Casey Jordan, if this is worst case scenario and it's one person, it's not a kidnapping for ransom, it's disposal of evidence, and unfortunately meaning that Nancy did not survive whatever happened. What do you think this person could possibly have done with Nancy if it ended up that way? Do you think she's hidden close by, or?
The bottom line is, and it's a morose thought, but everyone's thinking it, and out of respect for Savannah, we don't want to say it out loud, but we don't even know if Nancy left that house alive. And I'll simply say that it's a very big desert, and that this person, if they disposed of Nancy, probably did it in a place they knew, in their comfort zone. And it may be that we solve this, because we would have solved it by now, Vinnie, if we had heard from the actual abductor. If that person had actually put in a ransom demand that I think was credible. But none of them have been validated. None of them have been substantiated. They all appear to be hoaxes, which supports the theory I'm kind of going with these days, that it was a burglary gone wrong. Maybe he knew it was Nancy's home, maybe he did not. But if something went wrong and he decided to minimize his chance of being caught by removing Nancy, then $1 million is irrelevant. He's going to put that body in a place where it will never be found, or perhaps will be found by hikers, by a dog, you never know. And that will bring peace to the Guthrie family, but I don't know that it will ever solve the case of who took her.
Wow. Dr. Casey Jordan, always great to have you on. Bobby Tagavi, thank you so much. Appreciate you as well. Still to come, what does the blood trail reveal? I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the abduction of Nancy Guthrie, a story that just doesn't seem to make any common sense. Who kidnaps an 84-year-old with a celebrity daughter? You have to understand that the whole nation will be looking for you. What could possibly be the motivation here? Here's the story. The Catalina foothills are known for quiet luxury and calm desert nights, but now the area is the focus of a high-profile investigation. 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie disappeared after last being seen on Saturday, January 31st. When she failed to appear for church Sunday morning, her family discovered something was wrong and called authorities. Detectives say evidence indicates an abduction. Blood identified as Nancy's was found at the scene. Security systems were disabled. A masked figure was recorded outside overnight. The FBI is now assisting. No suspect has been publicly identified. And as tips pour in from across the country, the mystery only deepens. And deepens and deepens as each day, we're getting close to 4 weeks here, a full month that Nancy Guthrie has been missing. Let's bring back in Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. Cody, we've talked a lot about those blood drops, right, that we see on the front, but now there's talk of a blood trail. What do we know?
Yeah, let's start with what we know. Those blood drops you just mentioned there, we know those were found on the front porch outside of the front door at Nancy Guthrie's house. samples from that blood were sent off to a DNA lab. The results came back. The DNA matched Nancy Guthrie's. But now we're learning of this new blood trail. And in this video obtained by Fox News, we see a couple of those droplets. So we start here, we come down the walkway from the front porch, and we end up right here. You see a couple of those little red droplets on the walkway there, the walkway from the front porch of the house. Now, it was originally reported, this is why this is so, new, is that they said there was no blood inside the house, anywhere inside the house, anywhere outside the house, except for those droplets we saw on the front porch. But now we see these droplets in the driveway. Now, we also have this aerial view of the house here, Vinny, showing how in close proximity the droplets on the porch were versus the new set of droplets that we see in this little walkway here. You see they're in very close proximity, almost implying that if Nancy got an injury at this house, it was probably done right here in the general vicinity between those two blood droplets. Now, you saw how big that driveway was, Vinny. I was out there from the front door to the road. It was easily over 30 yards. Now, we see those two piles of, or those two droplets of blood, those two areas there. If any other droplets of blood are down that driveway with as much activity, as many cars that have come and gone in the past few weeks, those samples are probably compromised by this point. And also, there's no word on any DNA testing done on the droplets in this little walkway, these new sets of droplets here.
Yeah, but what I find fascinating when you showed us that aerial view is that the walkway leads right to that horseshoe driveway. So if you're going to take Nancy and put her in a vehicle, you could pull that vehicle right up, and it's a direct route right there that seems to track where the blood is found. Brings us to the next question in our investigation. What does the blood trail reveal? What story is it telling? Joining us, host of the true crime podcast, Pretty Lies and Alibis, Gigi McKelvey is with us, and the host of the Surviving the Survivor podcast, Joel Waldman. Great to have you both here. Gigi, what story is this blood trail telling you?
You know, Vinny, when I first saw the blood that was on the front porch, it reminded me of my grandmother. She had thin skin and was on blood thinners. And if she would barely hit her arm, she would get those droplets, just like what I saw. But what stood out to me were those tiny little droplets that looked like maybe coughing. Something happened clearly that injured Nancy close to that porch. You know, and you have to wonder, if you're seeing a few little drops here and there, did this person pick her up and carry her the next few steps to get her to whatever car was waiting? But yeah, clearly something happened, and it's a big pause when you know that an 84-year-old with heart issues and on blood thinners was bleeding.
Joel, what are your thoughts? What is this blood trail telling you? What story?
Well, I mean, on the one hand, it's absolutely devastating because you've got Savannah Guthrie's mother and obviously Annie and Cameron's mother as well, who are lesser known. And it tells you that obviously there was some sort of physical altercation. I've had numerous crime scene investigators on Surviving the Survivor, and the consensus seems to be that it looks like droplets from the nose. Now, I'm not a forensic analyst in that regard, but I will take their word for it. There's some sort of blunt force to the nose is what it appears to most people. And then that extended trail on the so-called nest man video, which is what I'm calling it, of the person trying to get into the house. There are a lot of people out there who believe that they see the kind of the faint outline of a car, and that's what you were talking about in that horse-shaped driveway. So it appears to me, obviously, there was some sort of confrontation, and then she was taken to a car nearby, if it wasn't already in frame there, and quickly whisked away. And if there's some sort of silver lining here, Vinny, we know that a body, someone who is deceased, does not bleed. So at least when exiting the home and being taken away, she was alive, and let's all pray that she is still with us, Vinny.
Absolutely. You know, Gigi, when I think of this whole scenario, like if she was targeted and you're going in there and you're taking Savannah Guthrie's mother because she's Savannah Guthrie's mother, you'd have to be very simple or naive to think that this is not going to be the biggest true crime story in the country. Like NBC News, the top person, you know, at NBC News, her mom is gone. You don't think all of us in the business are going to be all over this story from the beginning until the end of it? And every time that the victim's daughter speaks, everyone is going to blast that around the country, and you are going to be wanted. Like, that's the part of this that doesn't compute to me, is if you know who this is, you're setting yourself up for a lifetime of looking over your shoulder.
No doubt. And that's why, you know, in the beginning, I really thought this was an abduction because she was taken. But the more I think about it, like you said, you would have to be an absolute moron to target an elderly woman whose daughter is world famous and think you're going to get away with it, or it's going to be a little blurb on the news. I've followed this since day one. It has been 24/7 nonstop coverage of this case. So I can't imagine somebody would go in there knowing who she is and feel comfortable enough to violently take her out of her home and think that it's going to be yesterday's news real quick. I would venture a guess whoever did this is probably not sleeping very well at night at all, because none of us are going to stop until we find out where Nancy is.
Yeah, it's not going to end, Joel. It's not going to end. You know, it'll simmer down a little bit, but now there's $1 million on your head as well, right? Like, how could that not go into the calculation here unless you just were preying upon an elderly woman who was living alone, and for whatever reason removed her? I don't understand the motivation behind this, because it's just not fitting. It doesn't fit here, Joel.
Vinny, I'm 100% with you. You know, I just got done doing my live show, Surviving the Survivor, on YouTube, and we literally just stopped mid-conversation and just reflected, like you did, about how incredibly bizarre this story is, just in its totality. And the three of us, all in media, and I love me some G Money, Gigi McKelvey, we know that stories just come and go. That's just the nature of the news business. And this has been front and center in the news cycle now for 26 days. And it shows no sign really of letting up. I mean, we had basically the same interest tonight, maybe, you know, cutting it by less than a third than we did 26 days ago. People are absolutely glued and fascinated to this story, fascinated by it. And, you know, we've had profilers and detectives on, and the vast majority say that they believe this is sort of like maybe a home invasion gone bad. But the more I am thinking about this, the deeper we get into this, this seems like a person or group of people that had some sort of vendetta, wanted to capture Nancy Guthrie, and are at least up to this point getting away with it. But I don't think it's going to last. Their luck is going to run out, Vinny.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised every day we wake up, and I'm not waking up to news that there's been an arrest or that Nancy has been found. The number of resources, Gigi, that were poured into this, locally and federally, the pressure that is mounting on law enforcement to solve this. And Joel, you know, we're all living this, right? We know the public interest, but it's beyond, it's not just interest. The public wants Nancy found. It's not like they're just like looking at it, wow, they want Nancy found. And if anyone knows anything other than people that may be connected to Mr. Nest Porch, they will say something. They obviously will come forward. I think the majority, the overwhelming majority of people would come forward and not even want the $1 million.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is absolutely.
Oh, sorry, Joel, go ahead.
Riveted. No, I 100% agree, and I know we have a little bit of a delay here, so apologies. So I just jumped in there. But, Vinny, I mean, look, it was in December that we saw what happened to Rob and Michelle Reiner. It was just absolutely tragic circumstance. And who would ever think that, you know, within a 2-month period, another celebrity would be front and center with a true crime story. And I think this one is so relatable. You know, Nick Reiner was relatable because of the mental illness and the addiction that most people can, you know, relate to. And here, it's everyone's got a mother. And how does this happen to Savannah Guthrie's mother? And people are just, oh, you know me, Vinny, and I know you're close. We're close with your mom. I mean, this just hits home, and everyone wants her found, and it is unrelenting in people's minds right now.
Yeah, Gigi, we have like 15 seconds left. Go ahead, give us the final word on this.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Joel. And, you know, my grandmother was 91 and lived with me till she passed in November. And the same token, people have grandmothers, and you know how precious they are. And just the thought that somebody could come in and do that to an 84-year-old woman, it's got a lot of people mad and a lot of people invested. So fingers crossed we get that alert one day that somebody has been arrested, and hopefully we get answers as to where Mrs. Guthrie is.
All right, Gigi McKelvey, Pretty Lies and Alibis. Make sure you check it out. Joel's going to stick around. Coming up next, is it a good idea to deter coverage of this case?
This is the story of the Richins. Eric, a father of 3, met an untimely end, and Corey, his widow, wrote a children's book on grief.
She's also charged now with his murder.
He was faced with betrayal and terror.
I know her innocence.
Is their story a tragic romance?
Or a twisted tale of greed?
The truth will come out.
The Grief Author Murder Trial. Live coverage weekday mornings, 8, 7 Central on Court TV.
We know that millions of you have been praying. So many people have been praying of every faith and no faith at all, praying for her return, and we feel those prayers. Please keep praying without ceasing. We still believe.
All right, I want to bring back in Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas, who's been covering this for us. And Cody, you were out there and you got to witness the scene in Nancy Guthrie's neighborhood. Now I understand there's some new rules taking place inside that neighborhood.
Yeah, we got new rules regarding media parking, Vinny, due to neighbors' complaints about there being trash and it just being too congested. Now media can no longer park on the streets pretty much in the entirety of the neighborhood. Now we have a map here highlighting the areas, the restricted areas highlighted in red here, where you can't park. And you see how big that is. That covers plenty of roads. Nancy's Road pretty much covers the middle part there, that road being North Camino Escalante. Now, what's interesting, Vinny, is that Pima County officials tried to do a one-way traffic situation that didn't really work out how they planned it to work out a few days ago. I mean, it's just too congested. I was there. I can attest to that, between the cars on the side of the road, between the reporters kind of in the road doing their live shots in front of the house. I mean, you just can't maneuver. And you parked, you know, hundreds of yards from the house itself. I remember having to walk 2-3 minutes once I got there and parked. But the thing is, Vinny, journalists and media still have access to the area in front of Nancy's house. They just either have to park elsewhere or get dropped off at the neighborhood's entrance. Now, authorities also say the fine for this, for any violators, will be $250. So they want to keep the media out of the area here.
Oh, it's clear to me. It's clear, right? You can't violate the First Amendment, right? You can't stop people from reporting or being in a public place, etc. But they passed this special little rule to keep anyone from parking there, obviously, to deter the media from hanging out in the neighborhood and covering the case. Which brings us to the final question in our investigation this hour. Is it a good idea to deter coverage of this case? Joining me, retired FBI Special Agent Kenneth Gray, and still with us, podcast host from Surviving the Survivor, Joel Waldman. Okay, Kenneth Gray, your perspective, FBI. Is it a good thing when you kind of stop covering this? Go away, get away from the house. We don't want you covering this story.
Vinny, it's impossible to stop the press from doing their job, but it's a real trade-off. The FBI, law enforcement want the public to provide information, and so the way to do that is to work through the news, work through social media, work through getting the word out what you're looking for, and the tips have been rolling in. But at the same time, the social media and especially press coverage can interfere with an investigation. I was working in the command post on the Times Square bombing case. We had identified the bomber in that particular case, and as we were going out to his old residence, we saw the media already there, ready to go up and knock on his door. Fortunately, that was not his current residence, which was in a different town, but they can interfere at the same time they can help.
Yeah, Joel, if they gave me that assignment when I was working as a reporter to go knock on the door of a bomber, I'm passing on that one. I'll let law enforcement do the first knocking of that door. But Joel, what are your thoughts here? It seems clear to me that they're trying to, all right, guys, this is enough. I know the folks in the neighborhood, some of them might get a little frustrated. Do you think it's a good idea, though?
You know, it's a really interesting question. I'm glad you're asking it. But both of us coming from the broadcast news world, and both of us, you know, podcasting as well, it is a brave new world. And Kenneth is 100% right. I mean, and you are right. You are never going to get the media to stop being the media and trying to, you know, get scoops and get stories. And that is what makes this democracy so great. But at the same time, Vinny, I know I've had moments in my career where it's just my ethical, you know, the ethics and the integrity are so much more important than getting the story. I actually worked at K-Gun 9 in Tucson for the better part of 5 years. I know this community really well, this area. It's a very quiet, sleepy part of town. And reporting can be done without being directly in front of the house. There were reporters who were caught, you know, in the perimeter when SWAT executed their search warrants. And again, to Kenneth's point, you know, you want to be really careful to not interfere with an investigation. I just had law enforcement on my show in the last hour, and they say, look, they love the media. They just don't want them bothering them while they're trying to investigate. And I'm all for that, but I'm also for the media working to get the story. So it's kind of 50-50.
And in the true crime world, Kenneth, the motivation for a lot of people, yeah, you're in it, you're reporting on a story, but everyone is also looking for justice, right? Like you want the person responsible caught, and there is something too, because I've covered cold cases, and some of them go ice cold, like ice cold. This one, I don't know if that's ever going to happen. We'll see how it transpires. But where do you see the balance, Kenneth? Where do you see the balance in this particular one?
Well, in this particular case, I think what we're going to be seeing in the short term is a much smaller footprint on the part of law enforcement. That is, you're going to see all these additional agents that are out there that have been covering all these leads start to leave the area. You're going to see a small number still working with the Pima County Sheriff's Office there. But as far as law enforcement goes, you're not going to see these daily events going on that will lead to the coverage by the press. So I think as law enforcement leave and you see fewer investigative steps being seen by the public, you're going to see a lot of media start to leave also.
Yeah, Joel, we have like 15 seconds left here. What do you think it will take for things to actually simmer down?
An arrest. And prior to that, you know, I do think that Sheriff Chris Nanos has to give some consideration. And I've had a very prominent detective on my show who said this, you know, throw the media some red meat, even if you're not telling them something, you know, of real importance. At least just get out there to say you're working on the case. It will calm the nerves of the media. They might back off a little bit. But Vinny, it's a new world. We've got social media. We've got
it's new
YouTubers,
media.
All these other people.
Yeah, it's not the same world. Great job today. We're out of time. Kenneth Gray, appreciate it. Joel Waldman surviving the survivor. Say hi to Mom. I get it. I've been there. At the big story in the middle of the media circus. And I understand how most of the time the locals lose their patience, law enforcement grows tired of us, and eventually they want to kick us out. But I also understand that if you shut down the media circus, that clown on the porch wearing the mask may just get away with this. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues.